Just because AI can do it doesn't mean it should do it. That's Myra, 10 years at Amazon, now running Leadership Lab. And today we are talking about what leadership actually looks like when half your team is agents. Welcome to Agentic AI Execution Podcast, where each week I sit down with people building and leading through this Agentic AI execution shift. I am Lena.
My guest today is Myra. I'm so excited to be talking to her. She is running Leadership Lab. She has been with Amazon for 10 years and now she's coaching leaders who are running Agentic AI. Myra, welcome to the Agentic AI podcast.
Thanks, Lena, for having me.
You coach a lot of leaders who are building with Agentic AI execution. I'm curious, what is the problem you're seeing in the field? What are the leaders worried about at this?
I think because things are changing so quickly, the capabilities are changing so quickly, and nobody's done it before, that the uncertainty is probably the thing that is keeping people up at night. So I think it's important to remember that this is all new. It's literally going to change again tomorrow. And I think the more you can embrace the uncertainty of everything, the better a leader you can be, even if you're not at the forefront of every technology. And the people who are doing that and kind of sticking to a few things that are working for them and leaning into that are the ones that are not stressing out and, feeling overwhelmed.
You are hitting spot on. The uncertainty is something which I'm also personally worried about.
It doesn't feel good when you don't know what's going to happen.
And AI is acting like a mirror where you keep telling it and it keeps responding, giving infinite validation. So, how do
Yeah.
we get to a point where we are more critical thinker and developing with AI as a thought partner rather than trying to push us in a wrong direction? How do we stay focused in this era?
My AI philosophy right now, which I'm sure will also evolve, is delegate the work, keep the judgment. Once you delegate the thinking or the judgment to AI, there's so much room for error and so much room for kind of misguided, like you're saying, over validation, just repeating back what it thinks you want. I think that could be a huge misstep right now if you're not careful with what you're trusting it with. So why not trust it with the things that it's better than us at, which is the work, the things that we already know how to do and we can tell it very clearly and explicitly how to do, but keep the judgment. I did this earlier when I started the Leadership Lab. I run workshops all the time and I had AI help me with the content. Very basic prompt. And what it came up with was really good. And I used it in the webinar. And then I realized, oh, the examples are not really what I would have said if I came up with it by myself. If I had told you, Lena, this is what I think you should say in the meeting tomorrow, it's not exactly perfect. And so I really was so regretful that I used what it came up with because I didn't think at all about what my own judgment was in that situation. I was like, yeah, this sounds good. It's fine, whatever. But you have to have some guardrails. And without your own judgment, you can't create the guardrails, right? You have to know it first before you tell AI what to do and what the output should look like.
I feel like Amazon, we used to write this PR FAQ document where
Yeah.
we'll think through the problem more critically from the customer perspective, document it, and then only execute it. Right now, we have gone to the spec driven development where spec is being written, it's being prototyped, and agents are getting created. And it's super fast. And those agents don't make it to production. How do we step back as organization and start putting those best practices which existed 1 year ago?
It's just because it can do it doesn't mean it should do it. I find it really limiting some of my creativity because it's great, some of the outputs, but it's not always hitting the mark. And so I feel again, when there's so much unknown that's out there, why are we outsourcing our most valuable part of what makes us us, what makes the organizations that we work with unique, what makes companies like Amazon so innovative is like, why are we messing with the part that we know worked to drive our customer obsession or our innovation? Like, why not outsource all the crap that is hindering us from all of the good stuff, from innovating, from moving quickly, from making cool creative solutions, and do more of that, and then imagine like what big ideas could come from that. So I hear a lot from Amazon and other teammates of you know, AI wrote the doc, AI summarized the doc, AI wrote the comments that they're asking about the doc, and then like you leave totally uninspired. It did a lot of work, but did it come up with your next big idea? I don't know. But it could have done a lot of the grunt work so you came up with the idea. And then it did all the behind the scenes to make it come to life, right? So I think we need to get back to that. I'm not surprised though. Like we have to test it to know what works and what doesn't work. And so, like, in this weird couple of years, I do feel like there's going to be like a step back of how innovative we were because we don't know how to use AI to its fullest. And then organizations are already starting to move away from token maximization and move away from, certain things because they know that wasn't incentivizing the right behavior. That wasn't producing better outcomes than before. And so like we have to learn that though firsthand. I don't know that people are just going to blindly go that way. So even though it's feels painful right now. I think once we learn that, we'll move pretty quickly to evolving cultures back to what made them so special, which was like the people coming up with the ideas.
Ideas generation with agents and people together. How do you see, like, when most of the work now, like with the companies doing big riff and trying to reduce the teams and trying to delegate a lot of the things which are happening with the agent? How do you see the world evolving around leadership, critical thinkers, so that the teams and are working to their full potential so that they can keep succeeding?
I think we're already starting to learn this, but oh, we have to start somewhere. And so I get why adoption is the first place to start. You need people to be aware of the capabilities and how to use them and actually develop them. But once you get past that, which I think we're almost at in a lot of, top tech companies and obviously like native AI companies, you're past that. That's no longer going to suffice just thinking about adoption. You have to be thinking about like actual impact. And I think people can start to measure that now. But that's going to incentivize a very different type of behavior from your employees. So, like, you have to now go back to having discernment, having ownership, being able to prioritize, like all of those things that require judgment, right? And in order to get back to that, we still have to develop those skills with people today. Almost like complementary to you adopting AI is also you increasing your judgment, increasing your communication skills, increasing your relationship building. These are all like the human skills that cannot be replaced. And I do see some companies doing that where they're parallel pathing that because they believe that the judgment is just as important as, what the agents can do and get done for the team. But I think it's going to be a long path to getting everyone, all organizations kind of on board and understanding that.
Yeah, I like how you mentioned judgment is super critical and that should not be outsourced to agents. I- I'm curious, in a world which is constantly shifting, what are the things you are trying to make sure the leaders take into account when they are trying to develop other leaders in an old world? Like, there are goals, performance. What is that future looks like where agents are doing work, and how do the company or leaders evolve to make sure the folks working with them are doing their best potential and rising to become the next leader?
Yeah. I think outputs are going to be still so important. Like Now you have agents. So now how much more are you doing? How are you maximizing the agents to then you going to influence the relationships you need and, building more partnerships and scaling your impact or your agent's impact, your team's impact. So I think like the outputs are going to be even more critical. In some companies, we prioritize the inputs and the outputs. Like the how you got there was very important. And I think that's becoming less critical and less transparent because you could have used an agent or you could have done it yourself. Outputs are going to start being way more apparent if you're making headway with using agents versus, not getting on board with that and kind of still managing manual work. So leadership wise, I think that requires you to be extremely nimble and resilient. And we talk about resilience a lot. I mean, resilience, I don't think that word has ever left like core leadership qualities. Every year has been some crazy change that's happened that you need to navigate. When we teach resilience, I always ask participants, like, who's ever had a work challenge? It's like a joke question, right? Like it's like everybody every day has a challenge that they have to work through and show resilience and build resilience. And so the people, the leaders that can not only showcase their own resilience, but instill the resilience in their team of like, hey, it's okay to fail. Hey, it's okay to try this and not have it work. Hey, it's okay. We're going to find a better way to do it. Like, this didn't work. Let's keep moving. This crappy thing is happening to us, not under our control. This is how we're going to pivot to do it. Like, always kind of being solution oriented and having perspective is going to be even more critical right now. And I think the other thing that I see a lot of people saying is like, oh, AI is changing my role. AI is taking my role. The agents are going to do half of what I used to do. And I don't see a lot of people saying, if I had an AI agent, this is how my role could change. This is what I would want my role to be if I had 3 agents and 3 direct reports, 3 human reports. Like, you know what I mean? They're not thinking about what it could be. But they could. Everybody's in a position right now that nobody knows more than the other about AI and about how it's going to change leadership in the workplace and management. And so I feel like we have a lot of, especially like mid-careerist managers, middle-level managers have a lot of agency right now to be like, hey, this is what I'm seeing. And here, leaders, is what I actually think the team is going to look like and what we can deliver in the next 3 years because of agentic AI. Like, that's a powerful move that nobody's doing right now to take ownership over what it could look like and what your team could be doing, not be replaced, but could be doing instead now that you have agents. I think that's an important shift. The leaders that get on board with that and can start to say that out loud and advocate for that for their teams are going to come out way ahead than the ones that are just going to get eaten by agentic.
Spot on. I feel like even for PM role, like a lot of things around reporting or the manual work which we used to do, like where is the Jira blocker, which team is a long pole, those are all
Yeah.
getting automated. But that
Yeah.
judgment aspect you mentioned is still there. And
Yeah.
trying to keep pulse, where will unknown, those are the ones if a PMA has, that's going to make that person super successful. And TPM role can change to AI builder, front end deployment engineer.
Yeah.
But keeping that skill set, advocating for your own self are the critical things like being out there, making more mistakes, experimenting, and
Yes.
not be scared is going to take you to the next level.
100%. Yeah.
I'm curious, you talked about relationship building. If you can tell our listeners how to build those relationship in workplace and make sure like it's a win-win relationship and how to prosper.
Yeah. Relationship building is like almost super simple. If you think about the best relationships that you have, there's reciprocity, there's trust, and somebody didn't build that overnight. They didn't do some huge gesture for you and all of a sudden you're best friends. It happened over time with circumstance that, slowly they built the trust with you. And so I find the easiest way to build relationships at work is to take it to the most basic level of earning trust, which is like saying hi, asking questions about somebody else before you talk about yourself, following through on your commitments, having small talk, remembering details. Oh my God, Lena, you told me that you went to that concert last week. How was it? Like remembering things about you, like showing actual care about somebody. Like these are very simple things we probably are already doing in a lot of ways. And we're not clocking that it's like actually intentionally doing them consistently can build better relationships. So if you approach your relationships at work like that, gosh, you could make so much more of an impact of just understanding somebody better and how they operate. Even you don't have to be best friends at work, just like understanding them. It's really, really powerful. I did this a lot with leaders at Amazon. Like I would say hi to them in the hallway. It's shocking to me that people wouldn't say hi to the other leaders in the hallway or the kitchen. And they, 1 week they just say hi. The next week they're like, how was your weekend? The third week they know your name. The fourth week you're talking about their family and what they did. The fifth week you have an idea that you bring up. It's a relationship. It doesn't have to start with such like awkward pretenses or like, oh, this is my cross-functional partner. I have to build a relationship with them. It's like, just be normal. And I think people forget those small things. They try to over-engineer relationship building. And it really is like small, normal interactions that actually build a legit relationship.
I'm conscious the other person is busy and they might not have
Mm,
time.
yeah.
And that's where I get stuck. Like, how do I have
Yeah.
only multiple chances where I can approach that leader. And I want to make sure that person sees me as professional and
Mm,
also make sure that I'm adding value to that
yeah.
person's agenda. So how do we overcome this?
It's so funny. A lot of communication relationship assumptions that we make are totally irrational and are almost the opposite of what people perceive. You think we're both busy. So in the meeting that we have today to talk about initiative X, you don't ask how my weekend was. You just go straight into the agenda. My perception of that is, wow, she's super transactional. Right into the project. Cool. I don't know you any better than when we started the meeting. You don't need to spend 10 minutes asking me about my weekend, but now you know that I had a really tough weekend and my kids are sick. And so, like, that's what I'm bringing to this meeting right now. You know what I mean? Like, I understand why people want to be respectful and want to be, we're all super busy. And not doing it has almost the opposite effect of putting a wall between us. And now, when you need help from me next week, I have zero inclination to help you because I don't know you. It's how we work. We're humans. And so there is a balance though. Like, obviously, if you have a fire drill and we're getting on a call at 6 p.m., don't ask me about my day. We're talking about this thing. We have Sev one, like, I don't know, whatever it is, like, we're dealing with this fire drill. But if we're in a meeting, if we're seeing each other all the time, if we're in a group setting, like, yeah, ask about other people. So I think the perception of small talk, like, we're all busy, not a good excuse because it's not serving you. I teach a communications course and I always tell my students, you have to start with small talk. And they're like, well, what about, my engineering team? They don't want to make small talk with me. I'm like, well, maybe you're making the wrong small talk. You're not asking about the right things. What do they like? Like you don't know them actually. So maybe that's why they're not making small talk with you. You actually have to invest a little bit more and make it a little more awkward to do that. Or, probably the biggest missed opportunity is that people don't have enough one-on-ones, I don't think. A lot of people come to me, they say, oh, I have a really tough cross-functional partner. Every time I ask for something, they give me pushback. They're super defensive. I have to follow up with them 3 times. Like, what should I do? And I'm like, oh, do you have a one-on-one with them? Like, and they're like, why would I need one? I meet with them every week about this project. And I'm like, oh, well, like, what are their other goals? Where else are they working on? What is their leaders' pressures that they're putting on them? What else is happening in their world? And they can't answer it. And it's like, okay, you don't know. Maybe this is their eighth goal and they have seven other goals they need to deliver this week. So, like, you're low on the totem pole, right? Like, you need to know those things. How are you going to know them? By talking to somebody. So, it's like it serves you in the end to build these relationships and give a little bit more effort and intention, so that you both can win more. You both can do better on the project. And it makes it a little less painful in the process.
Well said. Having more one-on-ones, trying to connect on a personal and professional level helps to see the other side much better. I'm going to switch gears a little bit and talk about how to stay more critical and curious with the output some of the agents keep giving us.
First, I think there's so many parallels to managing an agent as there are with managing, people on your team. Like, how do you actually get the right outputs from your agent or your direct report? It's honestly exactly the same. The difference I would say is that there's not a lot of nuance with your agent. With your human direct report, you give direction and maybe there's some questions. There's some feedback loops like, oh, that's going to be hard, or oh, who do I ask for that? Or where do I find that piece of information? There's some dialogue. And with your agent, without the right inputs and the right level of judgment and discernment, like, you may not get that, right? They may just make assumptions and start going. And so I think you have to be extra careful. I like to call it, in any type of delegation, I like to call it the insurance policy, the manager's insurance policy. If you want the output to be right and to be usable, you have to give the right inputs. You have to give the clear expectations, the vision that you set, the things you're not sure about that they should dig into, and be super, super clear and explicit about what your expectations are for this task. That goes for a human and that goes for an agent. And without that, I think you're going to miss some of they're going to make assumptions both ways. They're going to make assumptions, and your output all of a sudden, right before the leadership meeting, is something you have to jump in and fix because you weren't clear up front. So the insurance policy is like, spend a little bit more time up front being critical, thinking about it yourself, and giving that info, whether it's to your direct or an agent, and checking in along the way on what's the thinking, what sources did you use, and like validating some of the actual assumptions that were made. I think all of those best practices that you learn being a leader and a manager, you have to like double down on with your agent in order for you to feel like you trust the output.
And when you are in a team setting and you are working with other team members who are also using agent to deliver
Yeah.
their output, how
Yeah.
do you know it's an output coming from with the human thinking embedded into it,
Hmm.
not just the AI outputs which we are discussing in a circle?
Yeah. I mean, it's at least right now, to me, it's very apparent. The surface level is not apparent. And then you double click one layer and it's very apparent, right? So if I say, okay, Lena, agent did this for me, did they assume it was green or yellow? And you don't know because the agent did it. You didn't tell it to assume green or yellow, and it made an assumption, but you didn't ask it about it. And now it falls apart, right? Like, we know we've cracked the surface. You can't just have your agents doing something and it not be, interconnected to anything else, right? Like, it's like everything is connected. And so it will very quickly be apparent when you are, poking a little bit that something is, assumptions were missed, or we're not sure where that came from. Or I just recently, before I left Amazon, I interviewed a candidate, and I was a bar raiser at Amazon. I interviewed a lot of candidates and they were using an AI tool for their answers. And I at first didn't notice, totally normal. The first response they would give me to the question was normal. And then the second I probed, oh, that's so funny. Like, was that a tight deadline or blah, 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 something just about the example that was not part of the script? It all fell apart. Totally random answer, unrelated, made up things, didn't even answer the question. And I'm like, that was a yes or no question. Why did you give me? It's like super apparent. So, I mean, we have to also still be asking the right questions and poking to make sure that the level of discernment and judgment from everyone in the circle is the same, right?
Yeah, keep peeling the onion
Yes,
and
exactly.
poking until you get the root cause of it.
Yes. Which I feel like we would do when we were working with teams. If you had an input and I had an input and we were doing it manually, we would do that, right? We'd be like, oh, what did you assume here? And you would tell me because you did it. And I feel like we're blindly trusting without that same discernment. But we do know what we want our assumptions to be. So if you just give that to your agent, tell it you're thinking, great. That's still your judgment. And they're doing the work, right? So like that's I think the ideal way to use it is you already know. You know what it should be, what the assumption should be. Give it to the agent so it can do it better.
Wonderful. How do you personally stay critical on an AI answer when it's so fast, confident, and maybe sound usually right?
I made this mistake. So I was preparing for a pitch for Leadership Lab, and I had my agent pull a bunch of stats for me. And I was using them in a bold way. Like my presentation was really like storytelling. In a practice round, somebody asked, "Oh, wow, that's really surprising. Like, is it really 100 billion? Like, wow, okay." And I was like, I don't actually know if that's right or not. I can't personally back that up. I did not see that source firsthand. And now, in anything I give it, I say, cite the source, give me the direct link. Like, I need to verify it for myself. I think you obviously can't do that with every single thing you ask, right? But I like to think of like the opposite. Like, what's the severity of this ask? Is there a chance? What if it goes wrong? If it's wrong, what is the implication? And then I'm putting more effort into poking and asking for more detail in those situations that are usually like public. Something could go public, something could be customer impacting, or has like a lot of downstream impact. Those are the things that I'm, asking for details, asking for a source, citing, checking the source myself. So I feel like you have to prioritize the ones that have the biggest impact and make sure you're adding your judgment there. And it's your reputation on the line, right? When you're still accountable for the agent's work or your direct's work. And you don't want to look less credible because your AI agent was being overly confident on something. It sounds like an excuse to be wrong about something. And there's such simple ways now crediting AI to actually like make sure that it's the right types of sources or types of data or validating the data before you actually use it.
You have also talked about replaying a small mistake for days.
My whole perspective is that when you make a mistake, instead of dwelling on it, go talk to somebody. I will never forget. I was in a leadership business review at Amazon and I uh, made a mistake, and another leader, not my leader, called me out on it. And they were like, what? Like, this is part of the job. This is a critical mistake. They were kind of on a rant about it. And I felt terrible the whole week, the whole weekend. Like, I couldn't sleep. I couldn't stop thinking about it. Right. And then on Monday, I pinged my friend who was in the meeting and I was like, oh my God, I can't stop thinking about this conversation that happened. And they were like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh, like when so and I were getting into it in the business review, and they were like, oh my God, nobody was paying attention because this email came out about a reorg and we were all like, pinging on the side about something else. They were like, nobody was even paying attention in that meeting. Like, what are you talking about? And I was like, oh my God, like I was losing sleep over this mistake. So you have to get perspective, right? And I like to get perspective from telling somebody. The mistake people make now is that they're getting perspective from AI. So you go to your, Claude and you say, oh, I did this thing. Oh my gosh. And then they either over validate or under validate what happened. And they don't have the context or the nuance or, all the politics of the situation. And so guaranteed almost whatever they say is going to be wrong, whether it's, overly positive or actually more constructive, right? Like, and so it's not, people are using it as consolation to feel better because it's so quick to go to, but actually you need to talk to a human for that. They have more nuanced perspective on what's the situation. Like, what if what that conversation actually was really bad and it impacted my performance? And then Claude is telling me, don't worry about it. You don't need to bring it up again, blah, blah, blah. You did what you could in this situation. And then my manager's telling me actually that like now there's a problem. So like you really have to get a personal perspective on things. I don't like to use AI to validate or, whatever your mistakes or your feelings. Or if you do, make sure you get another perspective because there's always some nuance that it's missing.
Totally. AI doesn't have context, and by the time we feed it more context, um, it's gone in that loop of validation. So getting a
Yeah.
human in that political
Yeah.
situation dynamics who had more context helps to get the right voice.
Again, it's the judgment, right? The judgment piece of it.
Wonderful. What do you actually tell someone who feels behind right now with AI?
Literally everybody. So first of all, like you're probably not behind because everybody feels that way right now. At least overwhelmed, if not behind. I think this is similar to any ambiguous big task that you have that feels like so hard to crack, hard to start, is you have to break it down into like super tiny micro actions. So like in this case, it might be like download Claude, like start a login for Claude. I don't know what, something really basic. It might sound so dumb and stupid, but actually like you're not going to stop there. Once you download Claude, you're going to open it. You're going to ask it something. It's going to give you a prompt to be like, oh, do you want to set this up? It's going to give you a little more momentum to actually do something. The other thing I would say is everything is changing so quickly. You have to schedule being curious. So if you are, wanting to try out new tools or you want your team to try out new tools, new capabilities, like it's not just going to like naturally happen on a Tuesday in the middle of a sprint planning set. You know what I mean? Like there's just no way. How are you going to spend hours playing with something that you don't even know how it works? So you have to schedule it. I have some leaders who like to schedule like Friday hackathons with their team, 2 hours. Everybody's doing that. So nobody's bothering each other with other work. And they're playing around with stuff and like sharing back. Curiosity is a skill. You actually have to like practice it and like prioritize it. And making it a part of your habit is probably the best way to do it. Probably the most common use case that people come to me with is like, I know I need to be using AI. I know there's new capabilities. I have access to them at work. And I can't do it because the first time I do it is going to take me longer than me actually doing the deliverable myself. The first time. The second, third, fourth time, it's now automated, done, whatever, we figured it out. But the first time, it's going to take me like, an hour to set it up, fix the kinks, whatever, get the right output. So it's painful at first. And I think people think, oh, if I use 30 minutes, I'll finish the process and it'll be automated. No, like you're going to leave frustrated after 30 minutes that you even got halfway and now you need to spend another hour doing it. So I think being more realistic about what the first time you're having your agent do a process, like all these things, it's not going to save you time. If you believe that, then you will be less overwhelmed when it doesn't save you time and it actually takes the time that you thought it would. You have to treat it like any other thing that you're starting for the first time. And if you can prioritize it, I think those are the people that are winning because they're prioritizing the time. They don't have more time in the day. They're prioritizing it though.
Wow. Prioritizing to stay curious and putting that in the calendar block. I like the way you set realistic goals for yourself. When I set my first automation with Claude and Cursor, it created so much problems.
Yeah.
I was doing automation.
Yeah.
It was just spamming things. If I don't do that first step, I'll not do the second step.
So true. You're so right. Like, and so if you truly feel behind, I would start with a process or a prompt or a task that you already know somebody else is using and it works. and you just adopt that. That way you have a win. If you only ever do the first part and you never see the goodness, you're always going to be frustrated. You're never going to feel like prioritizing the curiosity because you've never had why would you? There's no good, successful outcomes from this. I would start with a low risk, proven thing that you can get a win from. Automating the meeting notes, this SOP that's already existing, figuring whatever people are already using, adopt that. And then start to, build your own stuff and get more comfortable with.
If you have a leader on your team who is completely overwhelmed with AI right now, what is the actual first conversation you are having with them and trying to tell them to stay curious and adopt it?
First, I would try to understand why they don't feel like they're making progress on it, because there's a number of reasons that it could be. And so if it's time, we can talk about that. If it's that they don't feel technically competent enough, that's a whole different solution, right? So I would try to tease that out first. And then I would probably start asking them some questions that Claude or whoever could probably ask you too, which is like, what is the team spending too much time on? What is broken? What are the processes that you have had on your bottom of your to-do list to relook at for like a year? What does your team complain about the most? And like start there. Like let's pick a very specific problem and start with that. Usually it's, again, because of the ambiguity or the uncertainty that people feel this way, right? And like if you can narrow down and make it so much more controllable and more tangible and more achievable, it doesn't feel as scary anymore. So I feel like that's probably where I would start, with somebody who's like a leader, completely overwhelmed. Their team doesn't know what they're doing, or they're not giving the right guidance or any guidance to their team. That's where I would start. Is like pick a hyper specific problem and go solve that.
Dealing with ambiguity is an art. How do we start asking the right questions?
You have to break it down to what's controllable and what you can do about it. I personally like to think like, what's my first next step? Literally the first next thing I can do about this is like, it could be as simple as Google it. Or talk to Lena about this. You have to make it more manageable and controllable within your, what you control. And so I don't think that things are going to get less ambiguous. Once we crack AI and how to use it, something else is going to come that makes it even crazier, right? Like, so I don't think you can rest on hoping or expecting that you're going to have clarity in something. You can create the clarity in your little world and manage around the ambiguity that way. And that's how I think it feels less overwhelming and less out of your control, because it's, what you physically can do. There's so many things in the world we don't control. And so like, what in my four walls do I control, and to manage my own response to this? And I feel like the people who are going to do that, who take ownership over that, who are excited about creating clarity in this chaos, are going to be the ones who win for sure and who come out ahead.
Break down the problem into small chunks. Control what you can, let go of what you can't, and try to get clarity when there is not by asking right questions.
Exactly.
Myra, any final thoughts?
It is a crazy time. Things are so uncertain. And if you're looking at other people and saying you feel behind, or you're comparing yourself to other people and what they're doing, like, stop. That energy that you're wasting on looking around is not serving you, and you can go build your own unique things. No one knows what they're doing right now. Your leaders don't know. Your peers don't know. Nobody knows. The experts don't know. Everybody's in it. So build your own clarity, be curious, keep trying things, keep testing things, find things that work and double down on them, and do the things that make an impact to you. And that's all you can do. Keep your eyes on your own paper. Keep focus on yourself, and good things will come from that. So that's my advice to all your listeners and myself, honestly.
Thanks for joining us for the conversation today. It was so nice having you.
Thank you for having me, Lena.
If you want more from Myra, check out Leadership Lab. Link in the description. If this changed how you think about judgment versus delegation, hit subscribe. New conversation every week. Until next time, stay curious, keep building, and bring someone along for the ride.